We got a report here coming in pertaining to the state of Tennessee. I found it to be a bit discouraging towards understanding how much child abuse still goes on to this day here in the great state of Tennessee. But they was talking about the statistics and how much that it cost. And I don't think people realize how big of a problem that it is in the state of Tennessee to this day. Still about child abuse. Please listen.
$3 to $5 billion. That's the amount a new report says child abuse costs the state of Tennessee.
B with a billion with a B.
Every year.
Yeah, that report, called The Economic Impact of Child Abuse and Neglect in Tennessee, focuses on data from 2019 to 2022. Local 6's Jane Kim joins us. So, Jane, how many kids are we talking about?
Todd, more than 11,600 first-time victims of abuse. The report pulled these numbers from the Department of Children's Services. The study focuses on 4 types of abuse: physical, sexual, drug exposure, and neglect. The study also looked at cases of abuse by every county in Tennessee. In the state, half of the counties have over 1% of children becoming first-time victims of abuse each year. In terms of the impact to the state, the report found that this cost each victim $285,000 in lifetime costs like therapy and rehabilitation. Leaders say the cost is substantial.
A lot of times when we're asking for additional programs, additional services, additional investment, there is a cost that comes with that. And I think a lot of times we think about that cost, but we don't take into consideration what we're already paying to maintain the status quo.
I spoke with one local leader from a child advocacy center in Henry County, Tennessee, about child abuse numbers they've had last year. At 6, hear from her about the steps she's taking to support child abuse victims. Todd?
Jane, thanks. The report also found that drug exposure was more prevalent in East Tennessee, but physical abuse was higher in the middle and western part of the state.
Physical abuse was more prevalent in western and middle Tennessee. Wow. Think that's got anything to do with the meanness that come from around Reelfoot Lake pertaining to the Night Riders, Nathan Bedard Forrest, people being so prejudiced against other people that doesn't look like them or talk like them or act like them. Now they are fixing to bring up a deal right here that I was very impressed about in Northwest Tennessee, in Obion County, that I personally wish that I would have thought of the ideal towards being able to bring in emergency supplies to these children in each class in case of a dire emergency. Please watch.
Wednesday's often church night in many local communities, and some Kentucky congregations of the United Methodist Church are experiencing some turmoil. Many are splitting from their parent denomination.
The church is split on social issues like homosexuality. Tonight at 6 and 10, we'll look into that split and what the future of the church looks like in the Commonwealth. New details: 18-year-old Sean Jackson and his 36-year-old stepfather, Renzo Smith, were killed in a shooting after a high school commencement ceremony in Richmond, Virginia last night.
19-year-old Amari Pollard, seen behind us, was arraigned today on 2 counts of second-degree murder. Police believe the attack was targeted as the suspect had an ongoing dispute with the 18-year-old victim. Here's a look at the scene. You can see bystanders fleeing and a large law enforcement presence. A 9-year-old girl was struck and killed by a car during the chaos. She is related to the people who were killed.
And Todd, at least 5 others were shot, including a 14-year-old boy and 4 men ranging in ages from 31 to 58. The suspect fled on foot but was later found. The shooting is one of at least 279 mass shootings in the United States so far this year, according. The shooting is one of at least 279 mass shootings in the United States so far this year, according. Is one of at least 279 mass shootings in the United States so far this year.
Mass shootings has to be 4 or more people shot to be considered a mass shooting. What month is this? June? We're not even through halfway of the year. So you do the math on how many shootings, mass shootings, that's been recorded so far this year. That ain't counting the independent shootings. That ain't counting the suicide shootings. That ain't counting the random shootings. And that's not counting the type of shootings that goes on routinely in these bigger cities just about every day and every night. So you tell me that we don't have a problem with people wanting to kill people? The only thing that I can see that a gun does that ordinarily a club, a sharp pointed object or a heavy object does is that a gun makes killing somebody that much more easier to do. In other words, if you got that type of hate and anxiety that's already in your system to the point that you're going to kill somebody, the gun only makes it more simpler to do the job. To where if the guns wasn't as prevalent as what they are today, they would probably still kill. It would probably lessen the killings to some degree, but they would just change tactics in their measure of how that they was going to kill. In other words, if they have that much hatredness against you that they're going to kill you, odds are if they can't pick up a loaded gun or find a loaded gun, they will pick up a spear, they will pick up a club, they will pick up a sharp object like a knife or a big rock and do the job that way. So it's not necessarily with the guns, because a gun in and of itself is nothing more than a paperweight until somebody picks it up and activates it. The gun is in the heart, pertaining to the meanness that has bestowed upon the humanity, that now so much hatred has built up that basically all they can think of is kill, 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 and that is not a spirit of godliness, especially if the killing is an unjust killing or there's no justification for the killing. Only on certain circumstances pertaining to your life being in bodily danger towards somebody either pulling a gun on you or somebody breaking into your house, that you have that privilege still here in America to be able to use a firearm to be able to kill somebody before they kill you. But it's obvious that we are under siege, and the siege that we're under is a spiritual siege that has corrupted humanity's hearts and causing them to turn the way that they're turning.
According to the Gun Violence Archive, a 5-gallon bucket with a much bigger impact. Obion County, Tennessee schools are adding one to every classroom.
And those buckets are full of supplies to survive in an emergency. It could be anything from a natural disaster to an active shooter situation. Local 6's Blaine McDonald got a closer look today and joins us now. So Blaine, how many buckets did they prepare?
Todd, 300 buckets.
This is what I was talking about, that I find it to be very, very attractive. That, like I said, I wish I'd have thought of the ideal. I've thought of some ideals pertaining to taking care of our children in a process of a school shooting, et cetera, et cetera. One of my biggest ideals was to basically turn the principal into a warden, to the degree that all he had to do was press a certain button inside his office that would activate all the doors electronically through magnets and locking down the whole school system. That way the shooter, if there was a shooter in there, he couldn't just go from classroom to classroom towards picking and choosing who he was going to kill and how many that he was going to kill. at least that would eliminate that problem towards him being able to escape from one classroom to another towards killing innocent children. There was also another concept pertaining to a safe room that I've seen on TV, to where the safe room basically looked like the side of a wall until you grabbed a hold of it and it turned it into a box, a square box, and in the process of this square box you could lock yourself in the box to where the shooter couldn't get in there to you. I also like that idea. That wasn't my ideal, but I like that ideal. I really did like that ideal. They needed to modify a little bit more pertaining to the ceiling, that the shooter couldn't get up on some sort of a ductwork and still kill his targets from basically where the false ceiling is. Other than that, I thought it was a great idea towards having something like that in a classroom. And I know it's going to cost more money. I think they said the price on something like that was about $15,000 to have it mounted, put in your classroom. But what's $15,000 compared to an innocent child's life? You can't put a price on a child's life. And years ago, you didn't have to walk that tight line, because years ago, you had more good people in the world than you had bad. I'm not saying that there's not good people in the world to this day, because I know that they are. There's a lot of good people in the world. But there's more bad than there are good. What has caused this? Go back to the scriptures. Scriptures talks about your house. And your house can be either your body, or your house can be literally pertaining to the home that you live in. Your house can be a metaphor towards your community, your state, or even your nation. But Christ said, once you've had a relationship with the Lord, and then you walk away from that relationship, it leaves room in your heart for 7 more demons, to the degree that the latter part of that person's life will be actually worse than what it was before they ever dibble-dabbled around with spirituality affairs. It talks about your house being left desolate. The only way your house can be desolate is the fact that at one time something used to reside in the house, and now nothing, or the entity that used to reside in the house, is no longer in the house. You can look at your house the same as you do your body. Scripturally, metaphorically speaking. Whenever your house is left desolate, then you become vulnerable for 7 meaner, crueler, tougher demons to invade that house, take over that house, and bring destruction to that house. Once more, you can look at the house towards it being the same as a person's body, or a community, or a county, or a state, or even a nation. So please, whenever you watch this video, I hope that you take under consideration that we are no longer living in the days to where you can trust your mankind. I think the North personally caught on to this concept, and I really hate that the concept is even here. But the North, even before 9/11 ever hit, they'd done already reached the plateau in their civilian life to where one person living beside another person did not even know who that person was. Didn't want to know who that person was. Didn't trust that person, even though that person may have been trustworthy. But because there was so much wickedness and going on in the bigger cities, they immediately had to readjust towards no longer being friendly or sociable in the graces of trust, towards basically nobody trusts nobody no more. I know that that is not what God intended, pertaining to how that we are supposed to live a natural life, pertaining to growth, trust, and etc. But as of right now, we have to deal with what we're dealing with in the best frame of mind that we have to deal with. And to me, buying those buckets and stuffing them full of all kinds of emergency stuff, to me, that's one of the grandest ideals that I've thought of, or that anybody has thought of in the 21st century since 2001. In other words, that should almost be mandated, that every class in every county in every state should have something like that to depend upon. And you hope to God that you never ever have to use it. Ever. And of course you need to, make it official of where it is, but nobody is to play with it or tamper with it, that what the purpose of it is. And it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Maybe in the course of a whole season, to have one day to where all the teachers, all they do is pull out all the stuff and explain it to the children, and just exactly what it is for, what it's about, why it's put there, and maybe even do it maybe twice within that span of that season, because the children really need to know what's in that bucket. Because what if a shooter was to come in and the first person that they killed was the teacher, and the teacher being the only one that knew where the bucket was and what the bucket was for? I'd call it personally a lifeline bucket, because it could very well be a lifeline to somebody's last endearing moments of whether or not you was going to save that person's life, or that person was just going to become deceased because there was no type of emergency supplies to rely upon. And like the guy talked about, what if there was an earthquake? We live in an earthquake prone area here pertaining to the New Madrid Fault. There's always a tornado that can hit. There's always fires that can happen, etc., etc. So something like this really, really needs to be implemented into the school systems, I believe, that is dedicated to the life of the innocent. Thanks again for listening. God bless you. God bless America. God bless our troops. And good luck to each and every one of us as we go forward in dealing with these harsh situations. Thanks again, and God bless.